going into Iowa for your first game as a head coach is certainly not an easy task. You're doing it with a backup quarterback, it makes things a little bit more difficult. Ohio State, as we know, best team in the country, just a really, really well-run club. And I don't think, even if James Franklin was there, that this team would have had much success against them anyways. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Road to Happy Valley. I'm your host, Noah Malone. So today what I want to go over is the recap of the Penn State Nebraska game and then talk a little bit about Penn State hoops. So with that being said, Penn State 37, Nebraska 10. Senior night, congrats to all the seniors. This was such a great way for them to end their careers with such a dominant win like that at home. Those guys have been grinding. They've been through all the highs and lows of this season. So it was really great for them to go out with their last game in Beaver Stadium on such a high note. So really happy for them. This game was all about the running backs. Kaytron Allen had 25 rushes for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is now the all-time leading rusher at Penn State. He passed Saquon Barkley and Evan Royster, and as many of you know, his name will now be at the top of the steps at the student bookstore in downtown State College. That was something that I thought growing up was always so cool. So anytime that you're in State College, get a chance to go look at that. You'll get to see the list of leading rushers, and now you'll see Kaytron Allen at the top. So very, very cool. Really happy for him. Nick Singleton as well. He had 7 rushers for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. Some awards for him here too. He tied Saquon Barkley in career rushing touchdowns with 43, and he also tied him with career total touchdowns with 53. Fully expect those records to be broken by Nick Singleton here, as we do have another game and potentially a bowl game, which if you would have told me that midway through the season after the struggles that this team went through, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But nevertheless, here we are. Gronk, he was efficient as ever. 11 completions on 12 attempts for 181 yards and a touchdown, and Trevor Pena led the receivers with 4 catches for 47 yards. Defensively, this was another great performance. Yes, I will point out that it was against a freshman backup quarterback, but you give up 10 points. That's exactly what I would expect. This game was never really in question. Just another dominant performance by this defensive unit. Dom DeLuca led the charge with 10 tackles. Zane Durant, man, what a play from him on that 4th and 1 stop. He had 2 tackles, one of them being a sack, other one being that tackle for a loss on 4th and 1 on the goal line. That was a huge momentum play for this team. Led to a 98-yard drive for a touchdown by Penn State. It was awesome. That touchdown was caught by Andrew Rappelier, his first career touchdown. So shout out to you, first of many. I'm really happy for these guys. I'm really happy for Terry Smith, and this team's 1 win away from bowl eligibility. I mean, like I said, I would not have believed that this was a possibility with the way that this team was playing earlier in this season. It really did seem like the wheels were just going to fall completely off, and Terry Smith completely righted the ship and is 1 win away from having these guys playing in a bowl game. So again, really happy for the seniors. They absolutely deserve to go out on top like that. So I want to talk more about this Terry Smith situation. So I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but there was a wardrobe change on the sideline. Everyone was wearing khakis, a look that Joe Paterno rocked his entire coaching career at Penn State. Another thing that was going around was the Joe 409 pin that Terry was wearing on his jacket. this game had a very nostalgic feeling to it, and people loved it. There was people all over Twitter, all videos of all different kinds, just praising Terry for the job that he's done, the excitement that they feel about him, um, and I get it. Terry Smith is a guy that has not been afraid to speak about Joe Paterno, somebody with quite the history at Penn State, obviously. Um, were the pin. And leading up to the game this week, he posted on his Twitter um, the book about Joe Paterno. So Terry Smith is not afraid to talk about Joe Paterno, and a lot of people love it. So I understand. Me personally, on this entire situation, I'm very torn. There's a lot of people that I have been seeing in the comments and tweeting about it that they want Terry Smith to be the next head coach of Penn State. Um, they love him, and I fully get it. He's a Penn State guy through and through. He went to Penn State. He played at Penn State. He's been on the staff for a while, and he is a great representation of who Penn State is. Hardworking, um, honest, will tell the fans exactly what's going on, and is very transparent. And I think that that is something that, as a fan base, we appreciate. Um, my concern is removing the interim tag from head coaches, from the interim head coach, doesn't typically go well, and interims are normally replaced at the end of the season. So there's not a ton of time that interim head coaches are converted into full-time head coaches. And that's where my concern lies. Do I think that this is a bad move if Penn State were to make him the head coach? I don't have an answer for you guys. Um, I think he's proven that he can coach this team. The guys love playing for him, and the offense and the defense have been better since he took over. Now, that first three game stretch was at Iowa versus number one Ohio State and versus number two Indiana. I don't really think many other coaches in his position would have done much better than what he did, to be fair. And doing it with a backup quarterback is impressive, nevertheless. Um, Going into Iowa for your first game as a head coach is certainly not an easy task. You're doing it with a backup quarterback, makes things a little bit more difficult. Ohio State, as we know, best team in the country, just a really, really well run club. And I don't think, even if James Franklin was there, that this team would have had much success against them anyways. The game against Indiana is sort of where it all started to turn around and things started to get put into place. I mean, Terry Smith admitted it himself. He was a defensive guy. He minded his business on the defensive side of the ball. So um, it took him a little bit to sort of understand the full complexity of running a football team and being able to get changes done and changes made. And I think those changes started to happen in that game against Indiana, where it came down to the wire. We all know how that one ended. But um, his two wins that he got were against a bad Michigan State team and a bad Nebraska team. Now, I will say this: a win's a win. It's tough to win in college sports. Now, what I will say is you can tell me day in and day out that these teams were just bad and that these were games that Penn State should have won, and I would have no argument for you. But I think about it in terms of, look at the way that this team has been playing these last few weeks versus how they were playing at the beginning of the season. They look like a jolt of energy has been shot through that locker room since Terry Smith took over, and they just look like they're playing with a different energy since then. It feels almost like the weight has been lifted off their shoulders, and I think I think having expectations of winning a national championship or playing in a national championship, all these different expectations that this team had going into this season are a lot, right? And you obviously want the best for your team and you want the best for your players. And things fell short for Penn State this year. Um, and there was plenty of opportunity for these guys to just fully pack it in. And Terry Smith has turned this around. He's gotten these guys to play extremely hard for him, and from what it seems like, everybody loves playing for him. I mean, you guys saw the posters, and you saw the way that they were reacting at the end of that game in some of those interviews. We saw the hire Terry Smith posters that the players were holding. You, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but the way that Michael Robinson was talking, former Penn State quarterback, one of my favorite players. Um, he was saying that he was able to talk to a bunch of players, and a lot of those guys were staying if Penn State ended up hiring Terry Smith. Um, and I think that part of it is important. I think that in a coaching search, um, it can get very difficult. Obviously, this is not an easy task for Pat Kraft and that crew. Um, but I think it's important that there's players that are out there that are going to be playing hard for Terry Smith. I think that's an extremely important thing because it means a little bit more to Terry being from Penn State. Um, and players can tell that, the fans can tell that. Um, I'm making my case I'm talking myself into Terry Smith as we speak. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there is a scenario where he becomes the head coach of this football team. Now, I will support him 100% until we get to a point where he is no longer able to get the job done. Um, it'll be interesting to see if he is the head coach, what the staff looks like, and the player retention, portal, commits, all of that stuff, because all of that is going to be just as important as making the next head coaching hire. Um, I don't know. It's a very difficult situation that Penn State is finding themselves in because you look at it this way, you don't hire Terry Smith, now you have half the fan base that is frustrated because of how much they loved him. The outpour has been substantial. Um, you guys have been really, really pushing for Terry Smith to be the next head coach. I mean, anytime there's a video or a post on state media about the head coaching search, there's a ton of comments about this search is over. We've got our guy. Terry Smith needs to be the head coach. It's right in front of you. And you make a compelling case. I mean, he has really turned this around, and these guys have played well. I'm just nervous about the entire interim head coaching tag. And it's not anything directly about Terry Smith. I think he is capable of doing the job. I just know the history of interim head coaches, once that tag is removed, isn't favorable for those coaches. So I'm trying to look at it on both sides because I think he brings some great qualities to the table, some qualities of a head coach that you would want. He gets the guys to play hard for him. He's honest with the fans. He loves Penn State. Those are three really important aspects of whoever this next head coach is going to be. And um, the thing that plays into his favor is that he has that background. He has the background, and this wouldn't just be another job to him as it could be conceived as another job to somebody from the outside. Like being a being a Penn State alumni, being a former Penn State player makes this job even more special to a guy like Terry Smith. And we've all heard him talk about how important it is and how him being labeled as the interim head coach has been some of the most important moments of his life. So um, I think that all plays into his favor. But um, we'll see how this goes. He is going to get interviewed for the head coaching job, and he absolutely 100% deserves it. So I'll be interested to see how that pans out and how that plays out. But I am cautiously approaching that scenario. Um, but end of the day, really happy for him. Really happy for all the seniors that they were able to go out there like that and one last time at Beaver Stadium and get a win. So, um, yeah. Next, I want to talk a little bit about Penn State basketball. So last week, Penn State had two games. They matched up against 4-1 Harvard and 3-2 Providence. They finished the week 1-1 with a win, an 84-80 win versus Harvard, and a 77-65 loss to Providence. Let's get into the win first. 84-80, like I said. This was a battle, right? They were able to grab a lead about halfway through the second half, somewhere around the 8-minute mark, I believe it was. And they were able to hold on to the lead the rest of the way through. This game was pretty much a 2 to 3 possession lead the rest of the way, but it was a close game, as the score clearly depicts. Harvard had some good looks down the stretch, but Penn State was able to finish this one off and hold on for the W. Freddie DeLeon sealed the deal with a late free throw, 10 seconds left to put them up 4, and that pretty much did it from there. Caden Mingo led all scorers with 24 on 8 of 18 shooting, while logging 2 boards and 3 assists. DeLeon contributed 13 points, 2 boards, and 2 assists, and Josh Reed was second in points with 14 points and 5 rebounds. This might be the common theme throughout this Penn State basketball season, and it could be the shooting struggles. They shot decent from the field at 54%, but really struggled from 3. They only shot 29%, and they were 5 of 19. And on top of that, they didn't shoot well from the free throw line. They were 68% from the free throw line as a team. And as you get into Big Ten play, those are areas that are going to become increasingly more important when you start to play better competition. And Harvard was decent, right? They were 4-1 coming into this game, so it wasn't like they were defeated by any means. But you shoot better from the free throw line. You start to pull away from some of these close games a little bit sooner. But they made the ones that mattered. DeLeon, like I said, knocked one down to make it a 2-possession game with 10 seconds left, and they were able to hold off Harvard from there. Next was the 77-65 loss to Providence. I thought this would be a decent test for this team, seeing how typically Providence is a good basketball school, but unfortunately they failed this test. But it's all right. It's one loss, a lot of ball left. They were down 1 at halftime, so they were hanging right around with Providence at the beginning of this game, but they were just unable to grab a lead at any point throughout the second half. They got within 1 with 3:50 left, but Providence held them off, handing Penn State their first loss of the season. Like I said, the theme might be shooting struggles. DeLeon led the team with 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. Malai Tunka added 11 points, but nobody else had double digits. As a team, they shot 33% from the field and 33% from 3. Shooting that poorly and still being in the game with just under 4 minutes left is almost a moral victory. It's going to be extremely tough to win basketball games if you're only shooting 33% from the field and from 3. So that's certainly an area that they're going to have to figure out moving forward. They did shoot better from the free throw line this game. They finished 13 for 16, which is 81%. So they did kind of get that in order, but they got to figure out a way to get some easier looks and better shots in these types of games against better teams, because 33% is unfortunately just not going to cut it. This upcoming week, they are back at the BJC twice. They play Boston on 11/25 at 7 p.m. on Peacock, and they play Sacred Heart at 11/29 at 6, which is also on Peacock. So if you are someone that's hanging around campus for the holiday, go check them out. I know they'd love your guys' support. And what's better than getting 2 wins over a holiday break? I can't really think of much. So that being said, that does it for me today. We are.